Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from our Telesur studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin first with our headlines. In the United States, hundreds of people in Minneapolis mourn George Floyd, whose death set off nationwide protests across racism and police brutality. As Brazil surpasses Italy as it records the third highest death toll in the world, while far-right President Jair Bolsonaro claims death is everyone's destiny. The world exceeds 6.6 million COVID-19 infections and over 389,000 fatalities and more than 2.85 million recoveries. That's according to Johns Hopkins University data. We begin with our news. You stay with us. We begin with our news. George Floyd's first public memorial service has taken place at North Central University in Minneapolis. His death at the hands of police officer last week has sparked protests on racial justice not only in the United States but various countries around the world.
It was not the coronavirus pandemic that killed George Floyd. I want to make it clear on the record. Will Packard, it was that other pandemic that we're far too familiar with in America, that pandemic of racism and discrimination that killed George Floyd.
Floyd's family also took to the stage to commemorate his life and legacy.
Who you talk to, they will all say the same thing, and that George was somebody who was always welcoming, always made people feel like that they were special, and nobody felt left out. And he would enter into a room. Everybody would feel like they were special. He would embrace them. As I think about the thing that I would miss about him most is his hugs. Like, he was this great big giant, and when he would wrap his arms around you, you would just feel like, you know, you were, everything could just go away. Any problems you had, any concerns you had would go away.
Civil rights leader Reverend Al Sharpton has delivered Floyd's eulogy, saying that what has happened to him has been the story of black folks. He also announced that he's organizing a march in Washington in late August to mark the 57th anniversary of the historic demonstration for civil rights and restored and recommit the dream.
The reason why we're marching all over the world is we were like George. We couldn't breathe, not because there was something wrong with our lungs, but you wouldn't take your knee off our neck. We don't want no favors. Just get up off of us, and we can be and do whatever we can be. And when I looked this time and saw marches where in some cases young whites outnumbered the blacks marching, I know that it's a different time and a different season. When I looked and saw people in Germany marching for George Floyd, it's a different time and a different season. When they went in front of the parliament in London, England, and said it's a different time and a different season, I come to tell you, America, this is the time of dealing with accountability in the criminal justice system.
And following various suspicious people attending the memorial service observed 8 minutes of silence in recognition of his death at the hands of police. And as a memorial service took place, a judge has set bail at $750,000 apiece for 3 Minneapolis police officers charged with aiding and abetting in the killing of George Floyd. Tao Tao, Thomas Lane, and Alexander Quen made their first appearances in Hennepin County District Court, just a few blocks away from Floyd's memorial service. Under Minnesota law, aiding and abetting second-degree murder is tantamount. A second-degree murder charge to Tao, Lane, and Quen face the same potential penalties as Chauvin if convicted, up to 40 years in jail. In Puerto Rico, the president of the State Elections Commission, Juan Dávila Rivera, officially submitted a request to the U.S. Department of Justice to hold a vote on the island's status. The initiative pursues that the U.S. government authorizes $2.5 million to fund a yes or no to a statehood consult, which is promoted by the annexionist New Progressive Party, PNP, actually in office. The plebiscite will be held in November, and the Puerto Rican Independence Party, PIP, and the Popular Democratic Party, PPD, have called to vote no. Dávila Rivera noted that the Center for the Electoral Commission has at the invitation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Caribbean community CARICOM has sent a CARICOM election observation mission to monitor the general elections, which will be held this Friday, June 5th. Headed by St. Lucia's chief election officer, the CARICOM team is set to meet with the electoral officials, leaders of political parties, and other stakeholders of St. Kitts and Nevis, and will monitor the voting process, including the opening of the poll, the casting of votes, the closing of the poll, and the counting of the ballots. The nightly curfew imposed to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic will be lifted temporarily on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to facilitate the holding of elections. Meanwhile, Chair of the Caribbean Community, Mottley, rejected the European Union's shameless release last month, which includes third states deemed to have strategic deficiencies in anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regimes. Mottley was speaking virtually during the first extraordinary meeting of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States on Wednesday.
The governments, my friends, of the Caribbean region reiterate their unequivocal commitment to cooperate with all states in the fight against money laundering and terrorist financing. That cooperation requires recognition by all of our sovereign rights under international law and respect by the European Union for the principles of good faith, equal treatment, non-discrimination, and due process, values which we share with the European Union. Left unchecked, the action taken by the EU would further decimate our economies, since our financial and international business sectors are key engines of growth for us in the Caribbean, and I must confess to you, was the only sector yet untouched by COVID until this unfortunate action was taken with the publication of this shameless.
The CARICOM chair also commented on the murder of George Floyd as she expressed sympathy for protesters fighting for justice. She linked their struggle to that of Caribbean islands, whose calls for a revised vulnerability index continues to fall on deaf ears.
Disappointment as a result of the fact of not being seen and not being heard. We small island states know the feeling only too well, for we feel that we sound like a stuck record, and we recognize that no system that is ignored forever can flourish, and hence we find sympathy for the actions taken by those in the United States of America who are simply asking, in the words of Peter Tosh, for justice.
Time for a first break. Follow us on Twitter at Tulsa English and on my account at Laura P. Teleser. We'll be right back with some more news. We are back with our news. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro said that death is everyone's destiny when asked what message he would send to families of the victims of COVID-19. I regret all the death, but it is everyone's destiny, said the far-right leader in front of his supporters in Brasilia. Brazil currently reports 1,349 new COVID-19 deaths on Wednesday night and the highest 24-hour increase since the outbreak began, also breaking the record set the previous day. Brazil has reported about 32,500 deaths from the virus so far, the fourth most of any country in the world. Brazil coronavirus death toll is now third highest in the world, surpassing Italy.
It's very sad because if people are dying, it means that nothing should be open or working.
And the novel coronavirus is spreading fast throughout Brazil's indigenous populations, with death increasing fivefold in the past month, according to data collected by the National Association of First Peoples. Death among Brazil's indigenous population rose to 182 by June 1st, from 28 at the end of April, according to the National Umbrella Association that brings together the country's 305 tribes. In the village of Sororo in southeastern Para, tribesman Itamare Sauri said one elder had died and people were falling ill, but the government had not provided tests to confirm whether they had or not COVID-19. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro stressed that Venezuela is the only nation that continues to receive migrants returning to the country during the COVID-19 pandemic due to the neoliberal policies of other countries in the region.
The only country in the world that is still receiving migrants that are returning to their country is the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It is the only one. Thousands and thousands arrive every day. Fleeing from what? From the coronavirus, the corona hunger, the persecution, the xenophobia, from the contempt in Ecuador, in Peru, in Chile, in Brazil. Fleeing it.
Also, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro presented the latest report on the COVID-19 situation in the country.
Today, we have discovered 31 new cases of COVID-19 via local transmission. This is the highest number over 12 weeks. There's also 104 cases coming from abroad, 135 cases total.
Cuba continues to deploy medical brigades around the world to support the fight against COVID-19 in the midst of a strong campaign launched by Washington to discredit the island's international cooperation. This Thursday, it was announced that 21 Cuban health specialists are traveling to Guinea-Conakry to join the fight against the coronavirus in this African country, which Cuba supported in 2014 during the Ebola outbreak. The new group will join the 11 Cuban medical professionals already working in the country. Another 298 Cuban health personnel are also set to leave for Kuwait, where 36 Cuban health specialists are working. These two groups bring the total number of medical brigades deployed by Cuba in the context of the coronavirus pandemic to 33 across some 25 countries.
Africa and Cuba are united by the unbreakable ties of a historic friendship, and I am happy to be part of this history and of contributing to strengthen those ties.
We are the army of white coats, as our undefeated commander-in-chief Fidel Castro called us, and we are today fulfilling one of his missions, internationalism and humanism above all else. The role of women is always fundamental in our country, where we represent 50% of the force in every battle.
And the government of Peru has extended the mandatory quarantine by 90 days as the COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 5,000. This comes after the country had already restarted economic activities back in May, despite experts' recommendations against the decision. Peru so far registers 178,000 cases of the coronavirus. On Wednesday, a Cuban medical brigade arrived to the Andean nation to help battle the spread of the COVID-19. The team of Cuban doctors arrived in Peru this Thursday night to support the fight against the COVID-19 virus. The 85 Cuban health professionals of the Henry Reef International Contingent of Doctors specialized in disaster situations and epidemics were received by the ambassador of Cuba to Peru, Sergio González, and Peruvian health minister official Victor Zamora. In the coming days, the medical brigade will be divided to cover the most affected regions of the country. To date, Peru has reported almost 179,000 coronavirus cases, placing 9th worldwide and more than 5,000 deaths. South Africa's worst hit nation by the pandemic is no longer testing most people under 55 as officials try to clear a backlog of 57,000 tests. Western Cape province will test people under 55 only if they have serious health conditions, have been admitted to a hospital, or are a frontline health worker. The province continued to see a worrying increase in infections that has made it the epicenter of the outbreak in Africa. The Western Cape has a population of around 6 million and more than 24,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Health officials of the Republic of the Congo has expressed appreciation for China's medical support to help the country in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. A team of Chinese medical experts arrived in the capital Brazzaville last week. In the coming days, the team will be shared their experiences in the capital and Pointe Noire and train personnel, including local government officials and medical workers in the fight against the virus. The Republic of the Congo has reported over 600 coronavirus cases and 20 COVID-19 fatalities.
We always know that China is a friend we can count on. Today, like all other countries, we are facing the difficulty given the persistence of COVID-19 pandemic. Under such circumstances, the Chinese government still sends support to help us strengthen the capacities of our team to respond to this pandemic.
And the president of Burundis Constitutional Court has dismissed opposition leader Agathon Rwasa's appeal on May 20th presidential elections. The court ruled that there were no irregularities and confirmed Evariste Ndayishimiye as president for a 7-year term.
The appeal of the Honorable Agathon Rwasa and the confidential note of the irregularities deplored by the CECAF. The court verified the regularity of the presidential election of 20 May 2020 and that from this examination no irregularities of such a nature as to call into question the results of the ballot boxes were found.
Like this, we go for another break. Just stay tuned with us. We are back with our news. Confirmed COVID-19 cases have exceeded 6.6 million infected globally, with over 389,000 fatalities and more than 2.85 million recoveries. According to the latest tally from the Johns Hopkins University, officials are worried a second COVID-19 wave could hit the United States in particular as protests across the country intensify. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Thursday condemned George Floyd's murder in the United States. According to her, she hoped the United States society would not become more divided.
I wish that exactly this will not happen to the U.S., but that the country will come together. This killing of George Floyd is terrible. It is racism. We'll also know something like racism in our country, and therefore we also have our hands full. I want to say this explicitly. I trust in the democratic power of the United States of America to deal with this difficult situation.
The British government has announced that wearing a mask on public transport will be compulsory from June 15th in England, and those who don't abide the rule will face fines.
I can announce that as of Monday the 15th of June, face coverings will become mandatory on public transport. That doesn't mean surgical masks, which we must keep for clinical settings. It means the kind of face covering you can easily make at home. There'll be exemptions to these rules for very young children, for disabled people, and those with breathing difficulties. But broadly, as we come through this phase, we're doing what many other countries have asked transport users to do.
North Macedonia has reimposed strict movement restrictions in the capital and other parts of the country after registering a record number of new COVID-19 infections. Authorities say 101 new coronavirus infections and 4 deaths have been recorded over 24 hours, bringing the total number of confirmed infections to nearly 2,500 with 145 deaths. Health Minister Venko Filipce said a 4-day curfew will be imposed from 9 p.m. beginning this Thursday and will end at 5 a.m. on Monday. People will only be allowed to visit hospitals or pharmacies during this time.
This new wave is a result of people's not compliance with the measures, but also of policy of impunity. The virus will not go away by itself, and now it is important for all people to accept this reality.
China's National Health Commission reported 5 new imported COVID-19 cases and no new death this Thursday. The commission also registered 3 new asymptomatic patients as other 297 asymptomatic patients are under medical observation. The Chinese city of Wuhan has tested nearly 10 million people in an unprecedented 19-day campaign to check an entire city. The Chinese mainland has now recorded 78,327 recovered patients. In Wuhan, the last 2 known confirmed COVID-19 cases were discharged from hospital according to local health authorities on Friday. Hubei province has now 0 COVID-19 cases. In Vietnam, 92% of patients have recovered from COVID-19. On top of this, the Asian country has not registered any new cases in the last 49 days, as the number of overall cases has not risen past to 328. According to authorities, 4 patients were sent home over the last 24 hours. Bringing the number of recovered patients to 302. The remaining 26 patients are being still treated, and across the country are being taken preventive measures. With this information, we come to the end of News Brief. Of course, you can find this and much more information on our website, cultureenglish.net, where you can read opinion articles, watch special interviews, and of course, find so much more other material that we produce especially for you, and keep yourself updated about the latest data provided on our website regarding COVID-19 around the world. The invitation has been made. You continue with us with Telesur, always together, connecting our global thoughts. Until next time, thank you for watching.